Hello and welcome to the show. Now, when I learned that Car Throttle were doing some monthly gaming challenges, I, just had to have a go with one of them. And the challenge for July is a time trial around the Oulton Park International circuit on Project Cars using the RUF RGT8 GT3 vehicle. Now, I do very much enjoy driving around Oulton Park. However, the RUF wouldn't be my first choice of GT3 cars. No, that would go to the Bentley Continental, partly because of the almighty wing. The RUF isn't bad, but it's certainly not as impressive as the Bentley. But mainly, the RUF really isn't the easiest of the GT3 cars to drive. It is a very, very unforgiving vehicle. I think perhaps partly to do with the engine placement. You know, it's a rear-engine car, so slightly different weight distribution to the other vehicles. The back end is very liable to stepping out on you. It's quite easy to get this car very, very sideways, and it's very difficult to save it once it has started going sideways. Even at low speeds, you can have some very, very lazy spins because you've just thrown the car into a corner with that little bit too much speed, even, slow corners. And once the back end has started going round on you, you can fight it all you like, but you're in a lot of trouble. So you can have some very unspectacular crashes and ruin laps very, very easily with this car just by having the back end let go. It's not helped by some of the sort of bumps and crests and some nasty curbs around this Oulton Park circuit. That can definitely make things go wrong very, very quickly. It's just an unforgiving car. When you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. Certainly, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad car per se. It's just a more difficult one to get used to. And if you make a mistake, you are going to be a goner because there is absolutely no forgiveness in the RUF whatsoever. So that is the car that we are driving. As I said, I love the Oulton Park International circuit. It's a great mix of some fast flowing corners and some really quite nasty, tight chicanes. Now, of course, to start a lap, you want to be getting as good a run out of the final corner as you can. Turn 1 here is a tricky corner. It's very easy to try and turn in too soon to this first corner. You don't really want to be clobbering the curbs too much on the inside there. Very easy to ruin a run up to turn 2. You're flat out as you go over the crest for turn 3. Make sure you're getting the car slowed down in a straight line. Now, on this particular lap, I hit the inside curb too much. I actually lose a little bit of time as the car's bouncing around. You don't want to be doing that particularly, so you've got to leave. You've got to be quite patient with this track. Up to turn 4 here, it's just a little lift off the throttle. Again, wait until the front end of the car is settled before getting back on the power, though it's only a short run down towards this hairpin. It's quite easy here, but you can throw the car with a lot of speed into the hairpin because it is banked. Now up towards the first of the high-speed chicanes. It's all about trying to get a good exit through here. If you lose a little bit of time on the entrance, that's okay, as long as you can get on the power as soon as possible on the exit of that little segment. And the same goes for this next bit. Make sure you get the car stopped for the first part. Now, as you go through the next part, you want to keep the car to the left as much as you can, actually run a little bit wide this time, so you can be nicely lined up for this next section. Get a slight bit of oversteer trying to get on the power, because after that corner, you've got the run all the way up here towards turn 15. Another important one, again, making sure you got the car in a straight line, getting it slowed down. It's sort of a double apexed corner. You want to kind of almost coast through the first part before getting on the throttle to be flat out through the second part. Up towards the final corner now, making sure to get the car slowed down once more. You really want to stay off the inside curbs there. You've got to be also very patient getting on the power on the exit. It is quite bumpy down there. So again, a little bit of coasting just until you've got the car settled so you can go to a full throttle and flat out across the line. That's a 34.2 on that particular lap. As I said, mistakes are very, very easy to make around this circuit. So these were some of my earlier laps up towards turn 1. This is what happens if you do turn in too soon. You end up clobbering your way across the curb. I was amazed I managed to keep control of the car at that stage. Once the car's gone that far, normally you're going round. I do keep it together. I didn't quite learn my lesson, though, running too far on the inside of turn 3, and that's going to put the car around. Basically, it was never likely, never going to get away with 2 of them in a row. It's, once you've started bouncing across these quite nasty. I wasn't expecting it at Oldham particularly, but once you've started doing it, the car is going to have an issue. So up towards this final corner once more. Again, it's turning in a little too soon. You're trying to carry that speed, and the car is just unsettled enough. I was thinking I could get away with, carrying a little bit extra speed, but once the car started It's just little bounces across the road. The back end lets go, and I can't save it. That's what I talk about lazy spins. They're not spectacular, just lazy spins from the car that are quite difficult to control. Turn 15 was a rather problematic corner while I was trying to find the right line to be able to get on the power halfway through the turn. That was not the right line. I amazingly managed to catch the first part of the spin, but the second part, you don't really stand a chance. It's also quite nasty. I did have a few instances of just running out across the curb onto the dirt out over here. Not quite in this manner though. It's just pushing your luck too much. If you're bounding around across the curbs, something tends to give, and that often is the car into the wall. A little bit broken rough on that particular instance. Now, one of the keys to these chicanes is trying to get close to the tyre bundles. I say tyre bundles, rather solid tyre wall on the inside there. You're trying to get quick runs out of that section, but you may get a little too close, and that does cause some problems. Now, another thing, naturally you want to be running with as little fuel as you can get away with. You know, more fuel, more weight, the car will be a little bit slower. So I was starting a run with about 15 litres of fuel, and I was often kind of having a lap or two to kind of, you know, build up, find a bit of a rhythm around this track, and then I'd go for the next couple of laps. I was kind of enjoying driving, and I got stuck at my talent wall about 130 or a low 34. It took a long time to get quicker than that, and I was kind of just not really paying attention to the fuel gauge, and may have been kind of setting up for a lap and then ran out of fuel slightly. It's yeah, I did that a couple of times actually. It's quite important to keep an eye on your fuel gauge because, yeah, well, that didn't quite go to plan down there. Back to dealing with the chicanes. As I said, this is kind of turn 12. On the X of this part that's the most important of the corners, so as you fly through this opening part, trying to get the speed through this next corner, and I turned in a bit too soon. I was experimenting with a different line, and that one was not a good one. That was not a good one to go for. They are very, very solid, those things. You do not want to clobber into them. I managed to lose the front wheel of the RUF, which is slightly less than ideal. That's about the most spectacular crash that I managed. Coming out of the hairpin, I actually got into a little trouble. Wheel on the grass, couldn't stop the car. Tried to go through a gap as I knew I wasn't going to stop. Slightly misjudged it, although I never realised that the kind of like the red barricades were crash throughable. So that was all for, well, a waste of time really. I did spend a fair bit of time trying to just get quicker and quicker. As I said, I got stuck at the low 34s. I did eventually find ways to go quicker though, so this was on to my fastest lap around the final corner. Lots of patience required at that final corner to not get on the power too soon down there, so you can get as good a run down towards this first corner. So late on the brakes as you dare. It is a quick first corner here. You can carry plenty of speed. Again, you'll see me avoiding the curbs as best I can. It's just a little bit across the curves. Once more down into third gear for turn 3. Turn in, just let the car kind of roll through the middle of the corner before getting on the power. And you can get on the power relatively soon with this car. Once the front end's got grip, and again, that's the thing that you'll see through turn 4. Once the front end's got grip, you can once more stamp on the throttle up towards the hairpin. You will notice, though, on this lap, I'm keeping the car more to the outside from turn 4. I was a little slower through turn 4. I was a little bit down on the split time, but that was all about trying to get as good a run out of the hairpin as I could. Now, another thing that I do on this lap that I was really not wanting to do particularly, I tried it on this one, and that's where I got the time, was really attacking the curbs at turn 7, and as we're coming up here to turn 10, really throwing the car across the curbs. Now, I was worried the RUF was going to get unsettled. I mean, that's a big moment on two wheels, but could deal with it, and you could carry a lot more speed. You've got patience a little bit through turn 12. You really want to be flat out through there. You can't. It won't quite get away with it, but yeah, you can carry a lot of speed all the way up now towards turn 15. Once again, on the brakes, get it turned through the first part, and then you can get full throttle through the second part. It's an incredibly rewarding corner, that one. When things go well, it's a fantastic turn to drive around. And up towards this turn 16, slow the car down and wait to get on the throttle until you've crested the hill. You go on the throttle too soon there, you spin the wheels, you get sideways, you're going to lose a lot of time. The car is nice and settled. A run towards the line, 133.321 is to be my lap time here. I was very pleased with that particular lap. Yeah, really throwing the car at the curbs through the chicanes was turned out to be quite helpful. I really thought the RUF was going to have big issues doing it. amazingly it could get away with it, I then immediately ditch it. I knew that lap was stupendously good, so for the next one I kind of went a little too brave into turn 3, ended up with a wheel on the dirt on the outside, and well, that'll put the car around in a circle. Not that I was particularly bothered by that. Unfortunately, I wanted to do some celebratory donuts. However, the RUF was not having any of it. I don't know whether it's the way that the diff was sort of set up for this. It could be. The car was just not wanting to do celebratory donuts, which is a little bit disappointing. I mean, it's a powerful GT3 race car, but nope. No donuts for me on the tarmac, so then I went to play off in the grass to see if we could have some donutting fun, but apparently up here it was a little better. I kind of got it going briefly, but yeah, wasn't too keen. Wasn't too keen at all on doing the donuts, but there we go. That was my fastest lap around this circuit. Now, as I briefly touched upon before, the standard setup for this car is a rather difficult one to drive. For this challenge, I would love to have had the time and the skill to go and faff about with a tune on the car. I actually went on the internet to look at some various setups that I could kind of have a go with. I'll put a link in the description to the setup which I used, so you can have a go with that yourself and see if you can go quicker than I did. The only thing I changed from that setup, as I did put the rear downforce up. I think I used 6 on the rear downforce as opposed to, I think it's 4 that it recommends. But yeah, I increased the rear downforce just because I wanted the more rear end stability on the car. It was a good fun challenge, actually. I probably spent a couple of hours doing hot lapping and time trialing it just to try and get my time down. As I said, I got very stuck at the 34s, the low 34s for a while, trying to go quicker and quicker. But once I got underneath that, yeah, I was finding more and more time. It was good fun. Oulton Park is a great track to go racing around. It really, really is. And while the RUF is a bit of a tough car to get the hang of, once you have got the hang of it, there are some corners around this track that are incredibly rewarding when you get them absolutely spot on. So yeah, go and give it a challenge. And I'll also put a link in the description to the Car Throttle post. So if you want to enter the challenge on their website, you can do that as well. However, that is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.